One of the best ways that you're going to increase the number of clients and the people that search you out is through public speaking. It's going to be one of your best marketing channels. However, that terrifies most people, like tremendously. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how you can overcome those fears and why it's one of the best marketing channels for any consultant. Hey everybody, my name is Don Felker, and in this show I teach you how to start, survive, and thrive in the world of independent consulting so that you can have the financial freedom and autonomy that you've always hoped for. Today's show we're talking about public speaking. Those two words right there usually scare most people away. And rightly so. Most people fear public speaking more than they fear death, or so the saying goes. And I completely understand that. Standing in front of a group of people that you've never met before, you're wondering, what are they thinking? What am I doing wrong? Am I going to screw up? All kinds of thoughts go through your head. And if you've never done it before, you can be very self-conscious. And it's a completely normal feeling. In fact, I've been there. I may have given hundreds upon hundreds of speeches all over the world, even internationally, over the last decade. However, I always wasn't the kind of person to stand on a stage. And in fact, I used to be completely terrified of talking in front of just a small group of people. Even in school, grade school even, I was terrified to talk amongst my classmates, even in a group of 3 or 4 people. So how did I overcome this? Well, I'm going to share that with you today. But let me tell you a little story. Back in 1999, I got a job as a stockbroker at Charles Schwab here in the United States. There was about 20 to 25 of us in this class, and the first day came around, and the trainer of the class wanted everybody to stand up and to give a little bit of background information about who they were, where they came from, and perhaps maybe a favorite food they had or something silly like that. And as each person went around, they stood up, said a little bit about themselves. I could see that getting closer and closer and closer to me. And as it became closer to my turn, I became more and more nervous and more anxious. Really just scared to stand up talk in front of people. Why? Because I didn't have the confidence. I didn't know how to speak in front of people. I didn't have any practice. So when it was finally my turn, I stood up, profusely sweating, afraid that I'm going to make a mistake. I stumbled over all of my words, and I sat back down very ashamed. Ashamed because that's not the kind of person I am. But I was not used to speaking in front of people, and it terrified me too. So I definitely can relate to the feeling. But the reason why that's so vivid in my mind is because back then, that's when I said, I'm not going to be like this anymore. I'm going to change, and I'm going to force myself to be okay to stand up and speak in front of people. I want to be able to communicate with people. And so that was the day that I made the decision to change. Now, over the years, I did make a bunch of changes, and I started speaking in front of small groups and then larger groups, and then even up to over 500 people at a given time. Which is a fantastic feeling, and it's great to be able to go up and stand on stage and not really be nervous or scared or anything. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still going to be times when you have a little bit of butterflies in your stomach because perhaps you're giving a keynote and you're not too sure how the crowd is going to respond to the content, but that just kind of comes with the territory, and you just kind of get used to those feelings, just like you used to have the feelings when you would take a big test at school. You weren't sure how you were going to do, but you went in there as best prepared as you could. Now, why does this work? So before I get to how you can actually get over these fears, why does speaking in front of a group of people act as one of the best marketing channels for you as a consultant? And really, the reason why is because you're seen as the leader in that particular field for whatever you're talking about. So let's say, for example, you're going to give a talk on building websites, and you want to give a talk at a local real estate meetup. You perhaps happen to have a background in software, you know how to build websites, or you know a little bit about search engine optimization, and you want to share this with some real estate professionals. Now, you may only have a couple of years experience, but based upon a couple of websites you've built for a couple of other realtors, it helped them sell their houses a lot faster, and you've kind of broken down why. Now, you may not have the experience of someone who's doing this for 20 years, but you still do have the experience of doing it. So you can actually meet and speak in front of these people and be now the authority in actually building websites for real estate professionals. Now, what this actually does is because you're standing in front of people, giving them some information and educating them, you are seen as an authority on the topic. And when you're seen as an authority on the topic, people are going to reach out to you for help. And this is just going to happen by default. The same thing is going to happen if you speak at a conference. If you speak at a conference on copywriting or SEO or software or design or whatever it is, whatever the topic is you're speaking about, someone in the crowd, most likely multiple people, are viewing you as an authority on the topic. And as you continue to speak on the topic, you're gaining more and more trust with the audience. And eventually what will end up happening, and this may not happen the first time and usually doesn't, what may end up happening is 1 month, 2 months, 3, 6 months down the road, you're going to get an email. And it's going to say, hey, I saw your presentation at this conference, at this meetup, online, wherever. My company really needs help with X, Y, and Z, or my cousin or my brother or so-and-so owns this company and they need some of your expertise. How can I connect you, or how can we hire you, or what are your rates, or do you do consulting? And what you'll find is as you continually do this type of engagements, so speaking engagements, you're going to find more and more work just comes out and searches for you. And this is the reason why it's the best marketing channel for you. Once you're out there in front of the public, you're seen as an authority, and people will hunt you out for your authority and for your expertise and pay you for it. That's Consulting 101. I have given presentations, I have written blog posts, done videos, podcasts, and by far the best way that I have found of those mediums is through public speaking. And it could be something like this right here on a video where we're doing a public speaking, perhaps over Zoom if you're dealing with some type of lockdown situation due to a pandemic, or if you're just doing a virtual conference. Both of those work. In person is even better because people will come up to you afterwards, talk with you, ask you questions, and you can have a side conversation with them about their very specific particular problem, provide value to them, and then before you know it, they'll be reaching out to you for additional help, or someone that they know will be reaching out to you for additional help. This transposes many different levels because these same people that went to see you present may also be going to a barbecue next weekend, and whose cousins, whose brother, whose aunt, sister is a CEO of some company in Silicon Valley or some Fortune 500 company in New York. And they get to talking and say, hey, I need someone who knows how to do X, Y, and Z. Do you guys know anybody? Or we're having trouble with X, Y, and Z. Person says, hey, I was actually at this conference and I saw this guy, Don, he knows exactly how to do that. He spoke just about that. I'm like, oh, really? Do you have his contact information? Boom. All of a sudden you have a connection made because you gave this presentation yesterday, last week, last month, last year even. What you'll see is these things have a very long tail effect to them, especially if they're recorded and uploaded to YouTube. So it's very important that you do public speaking and get out there in spite of the public eye so you're seen as that authority. But the big question is, how do you get over the fear of actually public speaking? So what I did is, well, there's a few ways to do it, and I'll start with what I did. Number one is I just kind of hopped in with both feet. I said, this is something I know that I want to do. I really want my career to take off, and I feel this is a good way to do it. And so what I did is I signed up to speak at a local code camp. And so I have a background in software, and therefore I spoke at a code camp in Phoenix, Arizona. My first presentation, which I do not advise doing this, was in front of 172 people. And the topic was dependency injection. And this is an advanced topic for software engineering, but at the time it was something very new. And so when I went up to go speak on it, I didn't know it was going to be that popular. In fact, I was hoping maybe to be like 10, 15 people. When I learned that I had actually packed the auditorium at the local community college, it was standing room only, that's when I freaked out. So my first speech actually was for 174 people. I do not advise that. What I actually advise is that you speak at a smaller group. So that kind of leads us to number two. You speak at a smaller group. And this is what I did directly after my kind of initial shock therapy for 172 people that I was presenting in front of. I found a small group. So number two, find a small group you can work with. This is going to be small user groups or meetups that you find on meetup.com or some type of other platform that organizes people together. And the reason for this is when you meet in front of a small group with a bunch of people, well, I'm not even saying a bunch of people, but groups of 0 to 10 people, it's much easier because it's much more personable. And you're not worried about having 50, 100, 150 eyes looking directly at you. You can kind of look all 5 people in the eye. Now, You may have a small group that's talking about mobile development or design for usability or search engine optimization for real estate. So these things can be very niche, and the smaller you start, the easier it gets because it's not so scary. And that's really the big thing is if you start small, you can build your confidence up over time. So start small, find small groups you can do this on. This is going to be on Meetup. Sometimes you'll find them on Craigslist, all different types of Meetup, different sites out there. And if you're in tech, you can look up user groups, such as a Java user group or a Kotlin user group. If you're a Photoshop or designer, you can look up Photoshop user groups or design user groups. These things are all over the United States and perhaps actually the world. I know there's a ton in India and a ton of other countries as well, which have a bunch of creative professionals inside of them. So whatever your industry is, find that niche. Look for example, Google. If you were in software, you might want to put like say you're a mobile developer. Mobile development meetup in New York City. Most likely you're going to find a ton of them because there's a lot in New York City. If you're in Mumbai, it might be mobile development group Mumbai. Then you might find something for iOS or Android or whatever. If you're a copywriter, say copywriter meetup in London, and you'll most likely find something there. So start with a small group. If you don't have a group, you can always go start one. And this is one thing I did in Minneapolis too. I actually started a group in Minneapolis, and it turned into anywhere from about 5 to 15 people every month met up, and we discussed software. And so I ran that group, which gave me the opportunity to give small little chunks of speaking. So I hosted the group, introduced the speaker, and then I gave away prizes and did the dinner giveaway, which is like pizza, and allowed me to network with everybody during the entire time, every single month. From there, you're going to want to upgrade even to either bigger conferences. So these could be small regional conferences, some type of code camps, maybe even a corporate presentation somewhere where you're going to be giving a talk in front of anywhere from 20 to 50 people, perhaps 75 people. These are going to be a little more nerve-wracking. It's just something you just kind of get used to, which kind of leads me to the last point here. Practice. You just have to practice. That's what this is really all about. The more you do it, the better you get. Just like any martial art that you do, if you only practice the martial art once and you get into an altercation, it's not really going to help you that much. However, if you continually practice the moves over and over and over, and then you get into an altercation, most likely a lot of those moves are going to be second nature to you, and you're going to be able to respond and just act and go with the flow. The same with speaking. You're going to get up there. You're going to realize one time your slides don't work. One time your demonstration doesn't work. One time the cable just goes out. The power goes out. Something happens. I've been in a presentation in Las Vegas once where the water sprinkler and the water main in the wall broke and it busted through and sprayed all over a bunch of people's computers. We had to move to a different conference room. It was just like there's certain things you're never going to expect inside of speaking. You just kind of have to go with the flow. So practice. And the big thing is if you don't have anyone to practice with, look up a TOASTMASTERS group in your area. So let's say you live in London. You're going to go TOASTMASTERS London. Maybe if you're in Chicago, TOASTMASTERS Chicago. TOASTMASTERS is a group that helps you perfect your art of public speaking. Find one of these groups. Join these groups. They'll help you with your introductions. They'll help you with your transitions. They'll help you with adding questions. They'll help you with kind of replying to questions, doing things on the fly, improvising. All these things, they help you advance. And what you will notice is your communication skills will go through the roof. And it's a fantastic tool for you to be able to improve your public speaking. Okay, so let's recap. Public speaking is going to be one of the most lucrative marketing opportunities for you for many reasons. But number one, it's just going to prove that you are an authority in the content that you're speaking about. It doesn't matter if it's software, copywriting, design, SEO, whatever it is, whatever your creative profession is, when you're speaking in front of a group of people, these people that are watching are going to see you as an authority on the content. Now, as long as you know it well enough. Now, of course, you're not going to know everything, but you're going to know how to figure these things out. What this will do is expose you to as many people as possible, which then in turn will have network effects that can last for years at a time. You'll end up finding that you get referrals from people that saw you a couple of years ago at a particular conference, and now they have moved up the corporate ladder somewhere, and they need someone who has your expertise, and they reach out to you 2, 3, 5 years later. Hey, I saw you do this presentation. I loved it. Can you come help train my team? Can you come help do X, Y, and Z for my company? And that's when you start commanding the consulting rates that you would like. This is one of the best opportunities for you to actually get up there and start speaking. You can do it in person. Start with small groups. from 0 to 5 people, 0 to 10. Move up to larger, 10, 20, 20 to 50. Then go to larger conferences if you can. You can also do online conferences as well if perhaps you're still in a pandemic at that point in time or another one comes around. There's many opportunities to speak in front of people. Do it as often as you can. I usually recommend that you do it about 4 times a year, once a quarter if possible. Anytime, and here's the trick, anytime that I'm traveling to a new place, if I'm going to see family or I'm going to go travel over and check out a new city, let's say I'm going to go to Houston. If I'm going to go to Houston to just check out Houston, I'll look for a user group or a meetup that I can go speak at and present at. I'll spend 3 hours there out of my 6-7 days that I'm in that location giving a presentation. That gives me a presence in that local area, so it helps me create a network of people that I can work with, and also just makes my network bigger so people can actually reach out to me for additional consulting help. So again, take a look at public speaking. Take a look at Toastmasters if you're not used to it. If you want to get more practice, if you're feeling scared, there's a bunch of different options. As always, let me know what you think about the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if this is something that interests you, and I'll catch you on the next one.